Welcome back. I'm not muted. I had to check. It's good to see you. Welcome back to the Combat Footage Show. I'm Ronnie. I'll be your host again tonight. Still yet to be fired. Working on it. Give me a little bit more time, and I'm sure I can make it happen. Hit the like button. Drop in the chat. Let me know you're here. It's Friday. What's going on? Here we go. Where you at, everybody? UK, what's going on? Nashville, welcome in. Hot pants, correct? Hi, guys. Poor hat got yeeted. I didn't want to put it back there because then I'd forget about it. I want to put it on after this stream and into the next stream. But it's good to see where you guys chiming in from. Here we go. Detroit. Reminds me of my dad. You ever have somebody that uses the wrong emphasis or puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable? He used to do that. Say stuff like, better hope you don't get the Ebola. Anyway, welcome back. Spain, how are you? Northern Ireland. I think I saw Cote d'Ivoire there. That's interesting. Oh, no. It wasn't. I don't know how to pronounce. Is it Coeur d'Alene? Is that how you pronounce that? Welcome in, guys. How we doing? Hey, welcome back. Like I said, it is Friday. That's good news. You made it at least another week without going to jail. You might be watching from jail. You know, I've said that before. If you are, you know, hopefully you've got that dominance thing down packed. We've got a little bit of a longer show tonight. Thanks for the patience while we got started. Normally we start right at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard, but tonight I just ran a little bit behind. I kept running into more and more footage that I wanted to talk through, and you know, there's going to be a lot of it tonight. And in fact, I was hoping to talk a little bit about Iran tonight. I was hoping to show you guys a little bit of footage from Papua. But I just don't know that we're going to get there. That footage, though, is available for you on the website. Just like, you know, some of this footage is going to be. It's important to note that not all of the footage that we talk about on this show makes it to the website. Not all of the footage on the website makes its way to this show. Right, each of the individual team members, you know, are individual creators. They find things that they think are interesting that they'd like to write about, that they'd like to post about, and the same thing applies with this show. But what we are going to see tonight is we're going to see failed assaults from all perspectives. We'll see Ukrainian failed assaults. We'll see Russian failed assaults. We're going to talk about Russian bloggers that are no longer with us. We're going to see interesting footage coming out of Bakhmut, and a lot of footage coming out of Bakhmut. We're going to see Ukraine absolutely level a mine. We'll see Russia using glide bombs tonight. But we'll get there because we've got a lot to go through tonight. And the reason I say that is we're probably going to be around until somewhere close to about 8 o'clock. Under normal circumstances, we're done by about, I don't know, 7:30 or so. So it's a little bit longer. It's not too much longer. I'm making it sound like it's a marathon, but I want to get started. Let's go ahead and get started here. I want to talk first and foremost about Odesa tonight. Now, everybody at this point should be tracking the strikes last week, or the explosions rather, on the Kerch Bridge. Now, in response to those, either in response to those, or you know, as a means of reinforcing the fact that the grain deal did not continue, Russia mounted a mass amount of strikes against Odesa, under most circumstances targeting grain and infrastructure. Russia claimed very specifically that Ukraine used the grain corridors to strike the Kerch Bridge. Those grain corridors were kind of internationally considered to be safe areas for grain to make passage. But the launches included everything from cruise missiles to Shahed drones. Let's take a look at some of those launches here. You're looking at Sevastopol right now. Yada yada, move on. You don't have to watch if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you. Shahed. Okay, thanks for that. Got another one for you, though. It's not the only one. Just another perspective of essentially the same thing here. I love you too, Ken Doll. Welcome back, everybody. Go ahead and tap the like button. We're watching some of the cruise missile strikes, or launches, I should say, that originated in Sevastopol towards Odesa. We're going to be switching over to Odesa here in just a second. I haven't pulled our map up yet. I'll be pulling that up after we watch this one. This is point of view footage that shows us pictures of, well, moving pictures. What a loser. That shows us a perspective looking at Odesa and Ukraine's anti-air doing its best to shoot down as many of these as possible. It wasn't successful in shooting them all down, but some, of course, were intercepted. If you look closely, you can see the tracer fire. There's an impact. More impacts there, but there's that tracer fire I was talking about. Let's come up. Let's talk about a couple of things that Russia did hit with these, though. One was the Odesa administrative building. So here's some aftermath footage of the administrative building. Christopher, thanks for hitting the support button. Appreciate that. Got some footage, or this might have been the photo of an impact crater. One of those misses. This is the footage. An impact crater from one of those cruise missiles. Now, there was some okay footage of grain stores that were hit. I didn't include that here because it was really just showed burnt up grain, but effectively what was destroyed was about 60,000 tons worth of grain. Now, in order to replace that amount of grain, you would need somewhere close to, Cam did the math on this for us. You would need somewhere close to 470 plus train cars. That 60,000 tons worth of grain is on the high end of what you would theoretically have on a ship, if you will. Typically, ship's cargo carrying somewhere, if I recall Cam's notes correctly, between 50 and 60,000 or 40 to 60,000 metric tons. Now, here, I want to say, is the footage that I had recorded of some of those impacts. Yeah. It's coming up for you now. This is perspective from one of the apartment buildings in Odesa.
Бля! Охуеть! Вот это снято! Уебать! Бля! Охуеть! Вот это снято!
Some of the reports I was reading about that 60,000 tons were stating that it would take upwards of a year to replace some of the equipment that was destroyed from that. Now, Russia, also was striking munitions depots out there. I'm going to show you some footage of what Russia claimed was a munitions depot being destroyed in Odesa. Here you are. think those are cluster munitions, right? See the clusters flying out of the side. All right, let's bring it up. I want to bring the map up for you guys just for those that might not be tracking where Odesa is versus where Sevastopol is, nor kind of the significance of Odesa. Odesa is an area of Ukraine that Russia very much so wanted to capture. Its port is the largest port that Ukraine has. So let's pull up Deep State. Sometimes I get this done ahead of the stream, but you know, like I said, we were running a little bit behind. Map's coming up for you now. Let's jump in there. I'll show you Odesa. So Sevastopol out here, the origin from some of those launches. And then this being Odesa. At one point, Russia had made its way, or was attempting to make its way, all the way up and around with the presumption that they were, as an eventuality, either going to press from Transnistria, which you have here, that breakaway region of Moldova, to Odesa, as well as crash back down from just north of Mykolaiv. What's interesting, though, is shortly following the strikes, or even really during the strikes lasted for about, I want to say 3, maybe 4 days. That's not necessarily saying that they aren't still ongoing, you know, to some respect. But either during or shortly following, Russia put out a statement effectively saying that any ships that it sees crossing those previous grain routes, it's going to assume have military cargo, and it, you know, to paraphrase, reserves the right to target those. Well, that in and of itself is, you know, quite threatening to any, you know, would-be ships that wanted to traverse that route. Turkey at one point said that it could, and potentially would, provide security in some way for the Ukrainian ships that were making their way out with that grain. Russia and Ukraine are both very, very big exporters of grain. Ukraine having a very big part of providing grain, especially into Africa. In Turkey, recognizing that, said we could perhaps protect your ships. Well, they have since backed down from that. One of the major international routes specific to grain that's being taken right now is attempting to get Turkey and Erdogan to possibly negotiate with Russia to get the grain deal back on the table. There are elements of the grain deal that Russia wants, though, specifically the ability to export some of its goods that those parties involved in the grain deal don't want to be completed. Ukraine then responded by saying, okay, well, if you can say that any ships traversing that area, then so can we. And a lot of the response to that was, Ukraine doesn't have a navy. Well, tell that to the Moscow. Tell that to those other ships that have been targeted and brought down. Ukraine actually does have an anti-ship capability. It's primarily via Neptunes, surface-launched, land-launched anti-ship missiles. So Ukraine theoretically would be able to enforce what it says, or what it has said, which is we also will target anything traversing the Black Sea. You know, if you are not going to allow our grain ships to float, then we're not going to allow any ships that you have to float either. We've got a bit longer of a write-up that I'm going to talk to Cam about. Cam wrote it up, and I'm thinking we might release that as something a little bit longer on Twitter with some of his thoughts. Cam being a Marine infantry officer. He makes a lot of really great points in that. We're going to shift off of this, though. We're going to be jumping to the combat footage that we have, and we're going to be starting in Crimea, specifically in the southeast of Crimea. Let's head back to the map here. Let's close this out. So out here in the southeast of Crimea, it's approximately 200 and some odd kilometers from the border. Stuff's on fire, specifically ammunition depots. Footage is coming up for you now. Or at least it was on fire. One note. A note about insurance. This is one from Kim's write-up that he put together. Let's jump back up here. The simple threat of military action against, ships. Really anything to indicate that a ship could be traversing hazardous waters can do a lot of damage, especially from like an insurance perspective. If, for example, I want to say, what was it? The War of 1812, if I'm not mistaken. The attacks against British merchant ships, although largely generally unsuccessful, those rapidly drove up insurance prices for Britain. Just something to think about. So that's just one video we have of stuff on fire in Crimea. Another coming up here for you. The notable part of this is, again, 200 and some odd kilometers from the forward line. Coming up. I want to say there's one more video in there. Bring that up for you. Yeah, just another perspective here. Try to give you as many as possible. I still have something playing behind the scenes. Stand by. Let me figure my life out here. Yeah, I do. There you go. All right. That's what I have for you guys in Crimea. So let's move back to the map, because we're going to jump over to Kherson. Because there's some really interesting things happening in Kherson. We're going to start on Kinburn. Not on the spit, on the peninsula. So Kinburn spit would be this out here. This small, kind of pokey, spiky thing here. But the Kinburn Peninsula, Russia holds, but is well within Ukrainian artillery range. This area right here, we're going to see some video here momentarily of Ukrainian artillery hitting Russian positions. That video is coming up for you now. Keeping the music off of it though. Right. Now we're going to shift a little bit to the right. Well, quite a bit to the right, actually. And we'll be following along essentially the forward line, just like we do, Monday and Friday. To here. And these, marshy wetlands, islands. Most specifically, right here. Where we're actually going to flip the coin over, and we're going to see Russian strikes on Ukrainian positions here. Now, we've talked quite a bit about a Ukrainian foothold around Antonovsky. We're going to see more footage from there in a second. We've also seen footage of Ukrainians on those small ribs, fast attack boats, if you will. Well, once again, using those fast attack boats, Ukraine continues to, essentially conduct raids closer and closer to the left bank. Those ribs, those fast attack boats, are pretty difficult to hit via artillery. And don't let the red line fool you. In fact, the forward line, the direct fire forward line, if you will, is shifted a little bit further back. What you're looking at is area of control. At the very point of that red area on the map isn't necessarily a Russian soldier. That's an area of control. That video showing Russian artillery hitting Ukrainians and their fast attack boats is coming up now. I'm going to turn this music off as well, because I want to read through the chat here. Of course, the first one I read is ribbed boats are popular with the women. Okay, we might go back to the music. All right, let's bring it up. Now we're going to slide over to Antonovsky, that area, like I was showing you earlier. Where we're going to see what is effectively drone... Oh, that's Oleshky. Here we go. Antonovsky. What is effectively drone footage of... well, it's an FPV drone strike. But what I'm trying to get at, because words are tough, is we continue to see Russia strike essentially the same area. This strike specifically is going to go up and underneath of the Antonovsky Bridge, meaning that Ukraine continues to maintain at least some level of a small foothold on the left bank or the Russian-occupied side of the Dnipro River. A video is coming up now. We'll see some FPV footage tonight. Not too much, though. Just call them Zodiac boats. Yeah. All right, one more time on the lead in there, and then we're going to be jumping over to Nova Kahovka. All right, let's bring it up, and then let's shift the map. Here you are. So here in Nova Kahovka, we're first going to see Ukrainian drone strikes against trench diggers. So Russians digging trenches right up pretty close to the waterline there. I know that's directly contradictory to what I mentioned earlier about the forward line. And, you know, just to elaborate further on that, you know, saying that the red line is really just an area of control. Some of the reports that came from Russian telegrams within the last couple weeks have talked about Ukrainian artillery forcing a pullback into Oleshky, specifically around Antonovsky. So it's really that area that I'm speaking to most specifically. And again, those are Russian reports. Now, we saw indications of that being true with the BTR recovery video, where it comes barreling down the road, banging its main gun, picks up a Russian team and takes them back a kilometer or two. So that buffer area was put in place according to Russian telegrams because of Ukrainian artillery in the area, which is what ultimately allowed Ukraine to get some small foothold there at Antonovsky. This is Nova Kahovka. You're going to see a Ukrainian drone hitting trench diggers. That's what it is. All right, coming up. Now, also in Nova Kahovka, in the area of Nova Kahovka, I should say. So you're looking at more than likely across the river here for obvious reasons here in a moment. There's been a lot of discussion about, and there ends up being a lot of discussion about precision weaponry and precision capabilities of the West, right? And by and large, what we have provided to Ukraine, what we, the West, when I say that we, I mean, you know, the collective West, if you will. NATO, you can say, you know, there's been stuff provided to Ukraine from non-NATO countries. Russia also has at least some level of precision. We're going to see a FAB-500 here, outfitted with the UMPK, which is the Universal Guiding and Correction Module. Effectively, it just is the same thing as a JDAM. What it is a small kit that you put on a dumb bomb to make it slightly smarter. What you can't do with it, though, is increase the likelihood that all of your munitions actually explode. This is a FAB-500 being used in vicinity of Nova Kahovka, 3 of them specifically. One isn't going to detonate. That one right there. All right, just go ahead and watch it again. WTF happened to the JDAMs? Are they being used? Yes. Yes. So JDAM ER kits have been provided, and it's effectively a kit that provides some level of glide capability to turn, again, a dumb bomb into a slightly smarter bomb. Let's just put it that way. And Ukrainian airframes have been retrofitted to accept those, along with like the AGM-88 HARMs, the anti-radiation missiles. You know, a lot of the discussion was Ukraine can't even use those. Well, they figured out a way to use them because they have used them. We should see, as long as I put it on tonight, put it on the list tonight. Matter of fact, I could probably just pull it up. JDAM use in Soledar from Ukraine. Let's just go and watch that right now. We'll pull that from the website because I'm not entirely certain that I put that in the list, but it's right at the front here. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment while I pull that video up. There we go. Video is coming up for you guys now. This is in Soledar. Now, we would have gotten here later when moving through the map, but I don't know that I actually put this one in tonight's list of videos, but it was released in the last couple days. Yeah, that's the best we can do for resolution. Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's interesting, Moxie. As you swung by, a stream meant for us to talk between each of the videos to provide context based on YouTube's requirements for showing raw combat footage and somehow have an expectation to not talk. That's weird. Anyway, while you guys are here and while my screens are doing the jumpy aroundy thing, if you wouldn't mind tapping on the like button, I appreciate it. I do need to go through a little bit of the support that's come in. And just for you, Moxie, we're going to take more time before we go back over to the main screen here. Christopher, thank you very much for becoming a member. Appreciate that very much. Desert Vet, thank you for 15 months. That's a lot of months. Thank you for that. Means a ton. Mike, thank you for the 1 month. Let's jump back to our map here. And we're going to shift over into Zaporizhia. Here we go. Hold on to your butts while I swing the map. You know what? Let's just do this. Now, interestingly, there isn't a whole lot of footage coming from Piatihatki and Jerebianki. At least, not a whole lot that's been geolocated. Right? There might be some bits and pieces here. I'm sure you could search Twitter. But having that additional geolocation value just means, you know, quite a bit for me specifically. But we do have some footage from the Robotyne axis over here. We're going to start with Russian FPV drone footage. This specifically is going to be FPV drone footage targeting a BTR. I want to say it's a BTR-80. As well as a Leopard. Now there's a third vehicle in this. I don't know what it is, but it's on fire at some point. Coming up. Notable, no aftermath is included of the Leopard. That's not your connection. That's, you know, causing all that jumpy aroundy. That's a very technical term, jumpy aroundy. I don't have a whole lot of time to explain what it means. That's the video itself. This is technically that third vehicle. Don't know what's there, what's burning. Something is. It'll be transitioning to the Leopard strike here in just a second. David, thank you for the 20. Appreciate that. All the best. And to you, sir. Thank you for that. Here comes that Leopard strike. And that's it. That's where it ends. You know, that's what we've got. Compiled Tech, thank you for the 50. Political correct age. Oh, here we go. Slightly challenged bomb. Oh, I get it. That's funny. Drinking game, I'm taking a sip of scotch every time there's a mental comment from... thank you very much for the 50. Appreciate it very much. We're still on the Robotyne axis. This one is... there's a little bit more context than what you're seeing here. We're going to talk a little bit about the MICLIC again. We've talked about it repeatedly, especially with the ongoing, you know, quote-unquote counteroffensive. And the necessity for the use of mine-clearing capabilities. The context with this one is a little bit interesting, given its geolocation. Let's bring this map up for a moment. We're about to see footage of a MICLIC being used, but it's actually being used up here. So it's likely that we're either seeing old footage or what we're seeing in the video is the clearing of mined areas behind the forward line. Right? We're still along the Robotyne axis here. And we'll be shifting a little bit further down for some more shaping fires here in a moment. But let's take a look at this MICLIC video. For those wondering what MICLIC is, MCLC or MICLIC, Mine Clearing Line Charge. I think it'll make sense here in a second if it's your first. Congrats. So something to note on the ground is they've already fired one charge. That's this area here. And it looks like they overshoot, but you're going to find that explosion come nearly all the way back to the previous charge. Now, the original report stated that this was an M58, which would be the U.S. version of the MICLIC. We have no idea that that's what this is. This could very well be the UR-77, the meteorite. I don't know which pixel would tell you which one of those two it is. They're very similar in capability, in range. They are identical as far as mission. Not sure which that would be there. All right. Coming up. This next one here takes place also up in the Ukrainian-controlled area here. And it's going to be a Russian FPV drone that all we really see is the approach. Now, on the approach, we can see that the M113 that is targeting has its troop compartment door open. It does try to provide aftermath footage, but it's behind a tree line, and it's difficult to see. Coming up. I'll try and pause on the troop compartment. There it is right there. So you see the troop compartment open there. This is an M113 troop transport. That's all we get. Look, the bandit, it was... I think you're trolling because it's moving. All right, let's bring it up. Chase, thank you for the 10. We love the content and insight into the footage. Thank you. We do our best. Appreciate that. Thanks for your service. Thank you. From Rock Island, Illinois, home of Rock Island Arsenal. Thanks very much for the 10, Chase. The B Knight 3, thanks for the $5. Saw Yuri, Knucking Futz, yep. Just got blown up again. Yeah, he did. He sure did. Yep. Please tell the mad lad to take it easy, rest, enjoy a game or something while he and his team recovers. We will. Yeah, we talked to Yuri yesterday and the day before. In fact, I got an interesting message from Yuri. He said, "We found another mine." That's all he said. Just randomly. Right? We talk about maybe once every other week or so typically, but just sending somebody a message knowing full well what they do or what they have been doing that says, "We found another mine," and then kind of ignoring the response for a little bit. It's like, what happened? The video for that we haven't published and we won't be watching it tonight. Recommend you go check out his socials for it. It's a pretty wild video. In fact, he's got an anti-aircraft gun mounted to the top of his vehicle. Which is what he was most upset about. Found that one to be interesting. All right, let's move back to the map here, and we're going to shift south of Robotyne, like I mentioned. All the way down to, I want to say that I clocked this between that place. Not going to try to pronounce that. And I'm also not going to try to pronounce that one. But down here. Now, the interesting thing with this one is something that doesn't get talked about enough. This is Ukraine setting conditions or shaping by doing what they can to remove Russia's capability to conduct electronic warfare. This specifically is a P330, R330, excuse me, R330. It's a P in like Russian, R330, electronic warfare vehicle that gets hit. Now this thing has the ability to detect, track, jam, everything from Inmarsat to Iridium. It's got a wide waveband, so it can do all of that for both military applications and civilian applications. Now, it's typically a two-part system. One is the truck, and one is kind of this towed actual module. And what it's showing you there is the like satellite thing, I think. You can kind of see the spiral outline of it. Not satellite, antenna, excuse me. Now, I would say that this is probably HIMARS as well. You can see the dispersion around it. You know, possibly M31A1, tungsten, all that nasty hell rain. Something airburst, though. Let's bring it up. Speaking of airburst, though, further south along the Robotyne axis, we've got Russian vehicles. That looks like... The strike here looks like it misses. But the follow-up footage shows us there's at least an injury. When I first reviewed this footage, I saw, you know, the miss, if you will, and kind of ignored the remainder of it. I came back to it today as I was going through the footage that's out there and watched all of it, and that's when I caught the mystery machine rolling in as an ambulance. Right here. Bring it up. It's a van. That's what comes to mind when I see van of that makeup, I guess. All right, let's shift once again to an area that I can't pronounce, but I'll show it to you on the map. Priutnoye. Here. That's where we're going. And when I say here, it's the area, right? Funker, the YouTube video title, Ghost in the Machine, from the U.S. Army PSYOP recruitment. Comments? Physical wounds heal. Let's bring it up. What you're going to see here is cluster munitions. So Ukraine use of cluster munitions against Russian positions. So more footage of that. What's interesting to me here is, and I've asked a couple artillery guys, you know, what their thoughts are on this, and they share questions. This doesn't look like DPICM. Now, we talked about this on the last stream, that there's a possibility what we could be seeing here are the 120 millimeter U.S. produced cluster munitions that were provided by Turkey. That I find to be more possibility than DPICM, the 155s that we are tracking controversially that Ukraine is in receipt of, because the signature of those 155s, at least what I know of it, which comes from a basis of ignorance, is much bigger. And I actually, you know, speaking of Cam has seen this and has used this in action in, you know, his deployments. He remembers it being a much larger signature. But here is the use of those cluster munitions. Whether they're the 120s or the 155s, I'm not sure. These have a distinct circular signature. And if there's any artillery guys in the comments, chime in. Let us know what we're looking at here. I'm not an artillery guy. The 155 has a huge signature. That's what I'm tracking as well, Carnivore. Apparently, these are the clusters from Greece. Interesting. Not 155. I think I've kind of convinced myself until proven otherwise that it's not the 155s. And at this point, it's more of a question of what exactly it is than anything. Because again, the best signature data that we have is either experiential, right? So folks that have actually seen it used. Cam on our team has seen this used in combat before and says very, very specifically, you'll know when it's the 155 DPICM. This seems a little bit less of a signature than what is described to me and what I've seen elsewhere, right? So whether it be YouTube videos, there's an old 80s video of an absolute Chad with some BCGs on describing hell rain. That's the one that I go back to. We're going to shift on our map to Staromayorsk. Right over to here. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. And the reason, it's pretty standard footage. And when I say standard, it's kind of becoming the baseline of footage that we see coming out of Ukraine. Typically there ends up becoming the, FPV drone footage. And we're going to see more of that. But what makes this interesting is it helps put into context how back and forth things are. We're going to see back-to-back FPV drone videos. One from Russia, one from Ukraine. Not necessarily in that order. Yes, it actually is in that order. I am nuts at this. The first one being a Russian strike. It's going to happen, I want to say, about here. The vehicle's moving to the west along this road, and it gets hit right in front of this building, and then it turns south to unask that area. And then we're going to see a follow-up video of another FPV strike that hits here. And I might have that backwards. Anyway, we'll talk about it more once we get to the footage. You end up catching so much of this footage that some of it kind of just begins to blend together. All right, yeah, this is the Russian strike. We'll watch this one. I'll show you on the map where this happens. Okay. That one took place here. Right up here. Now this next one is going to be a Ukrainian drone. I did have it backwards. Forgive me. And that strike's going to happen right in front of this building here. Now, total distance there. Something like 200 meters. Yeah, 220 meters. Coming up now. Something bit me. It's going to make a left down that road and turn south now. Oh, Moxie, thanks for the 561. I'll have to own that L myself. Thank you very much. Bro is commenting, speak among us, not speak in general. Love from Croatia. I will apologize to you. I'll own that. Thank you very much. Thanks for the love. So it just continues moving south. Going south. No, like really, it's still going. All right. Now, we're going to spend a little bit of time in this next area. This we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we got a lot of footage here. That's because there was actually a pretty major battle that took place. Krasnohorivka. But first, we need to go to Google Earth. We need to give you guys a respectable image of the mine just to the southeast of Krasnohorivka. It's going to come up for you now. Go, go, go. All right. So, get out of here. This mine here. Russia made an attempt to storm this mine, and at one point was successful in achieving the mine. However, we're going to see footage of not just the storming of the mine, but Ukraine then subsequently leveling this mine, all leading up to what I understand to be Russia's withdrawal from the mine. Now, in the process of talking about this area, we're going to have to shift down here and talk about this little spot. But we'll get there when we get there. Specifically, this spot right here. Right about there. Get there in a moment. Very first video that we have lined up for that is Russia storming the mine. Hello? Thanks. Dope. Coming up now. Now, if you look closely here, you'll see the white armbands as they got closer to that main building there. The artillery that's landing, it's Ukrainian. We're going to see more footage of that here in a moment. But here's some more footage of Russia moving towards that mine. Starts to go poorly. See the mine in the background? That's the music on the back side of this. See mortar impacts there. Remember those mortar impacts. These. That's not artillery, that's mortar. All right. Now, again, Russia did achieve the mine, but things started going fucking haywire. Let's just put it that way. You're going to see a series. This is Ukrainian perspective footage here. So you'll see it's kind of compilation, and I want to say we might need a discretion advised here. If I recall correctly, we're going to see deceased. We'll come back to this here in a moment. Some more footage of Ukraine targeting that mine. Specifically FPV drone footage. This is from our company, our team Twitter. This night vision video is Depickums. Yeah, Bremner, we'll talk about that here in a second. But it wasn't just small FPV drones and drone-dropped munitions. Ukraine dropped big shit on it. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think that's the best way of describing it. How else would you describe that? All right. All of that resulted in this. I think this one is where the discretion is necessary. Discretion advised. I believe this video has deceased visible. We're not done talking about Krasnohorivka either. Quite a few vehicles there. Now, at some point during all of this, at some point, this happened. Let's watch the video and then we'll talk about it. This is Russian infantry on the ground. Allegedly, what you guys are seeing here is at some point during these strikes, whether it be that initial mortar that lands or this cluster that lands following, a pretty prominent Russian military blogger, was killed here. Goes by the name of Misha Luchin. Runs by the handle Misha from Donbass, or Misha in Donbass. I want to say his Telegram has somewhere between 20 and 30,000 folks that follow it. That's substantial. But here is, well, here's where this starts to get interesting. If you go to our Twitter, I need you to go there and read this story right here. Okay? Just go read this story right here, because what that story is going to describe to you, for those that aren't tracking it, is where some of that prominence comes from. Back in April, a story broke. I don't think we even talked about it here, but it was out there. Misha had raised approximately $25,000 to buy drones for he and his, Russian comrades. Ukrainian hackers took over his drone GoFundMe or whatever it was, whichever fundraising platform he used, and instead ordered $25,000 worth of dildos. And they sent him dildos, $25,000 worth of them. For those thinking that story is too preposterous to be true, he actually admitted that that happened. In fact, in one post, he complained that Russia could not target, or should target, but wasn't, the people that hacked his account and ordered him dildos. Even further, he admitted to either receiving them or knowing that they were purchased with his account. He said, fine, I'll just take the dildos, open a sex shop, flip the dildos for more money, and buy more drones. The more you know. But that story is available on our Twitter. I'll give you guys the link to it. Actually, I'll just give you the link to the story directly that shows the specific kind of dildo that was purchased. And gives a whole lot more detail than I just gave you there. There's multiple stories out about that. You can Google it. It happened. It is what it is. I never thought that on this show, I'd have a talking point of cluster munitions, mortars, and dildos inside of the same 10 minutes. But here we are. Ukrainian hackers ordered $25,000 worth of dildos. I want to know if he received them and how they got there. I believe it happened. The logistics of it is what interests me at this point. I'm checking in on the support. I'm going to turn the music back on for a minute. Sour Vodka, thanks for the 345. Any thoughts on Igor's arrest? Also, is Wagner more of a threat to Russia or Ukraine and Belarus? So, Igor Girkin. Yeah, he better call Saul. So, what he's referencing is Igor Girkin, kind of a prominent voice in Russia. He also took heavy part in 2014 in Ukraine. He has been very critical of Russia in the mill blogger type space. And a lot of the more hard-lined, pro-Putinists out there have kind of speculated that something like this would happen. Footage emerged of him being held in one of those weird Russian, glass cells that they do when you're in court. Yeah, that's what happens when you speak out against Putin. And that's what he was doing. Now, some of his friends are also being arrested. There's a Russian general, colonel general, one of the weird ranks. I'm not sure which one it is. He was also arrested, though, because some of his language was even more inflammatory than Igor's. Appreciate the 345. Moxie, thanks again for the 561. Chase, thanks again for the 10. And B Knight, thanks again for the 5. All right. We're going to see footage next of a Russian assault, though, near Novelsky. Let's pull that up on the map. Still in Donetsk. We haven't moved far, though. I'll show you what I mean by that. Oh, and I want to bring everything full circle here. That spot here that we watched the strike on what was allegedly or reported by both Russian and Ukrainian sources to be Misha in Donbass. And then here is that mine, just to bring that back full circle. So we're jumping up to Novelsky here. So we were just down here in Krasnohorivka. Moving to Novelsky. Now this arrow is likely what this next video is going to is referencing. We're going to see a Russian assault towards Novelsky. Here you are. See those main guns firing. So one of the things that's interesting to me about this footage is how it was initially reported. So this was reported as a Russian assault. But to me, this looks infinitely more like a Ukrainian assault. So one of the things that we try our very best to do is just report things as they are reported. Now, when we have additional context to provide to it, whether it be geolocation or something else, we try and add that. When there's something like this, though, this is really typically a talking point. You know, this wasn't necessarily shared by Ukrainian sources. At least that's not where I got it from. But those look a whole lot like Humvees to me. Russian assaults with Humvees. No, that's what I'm talking about. This was shared by pro-Russian sources as a Russian assault. To me, that reads a lot more like a Ukrainian assault of some kind. Let's bring it up. Cheap Chinese knockoff Humvees. All right, let's move on our map. We're going to be headed over to Bakhmut, where we're going to spend quite a bit of time there, too. There's quite a bit of stuff going on near Bakhmut. Not quite dildos. $25,000 worth of them. But stuff, still. Let's go. Jumping over Avdiivka. We're going to be starting near Kurdyumivka. Now, this is going to show some of these additional advances. Now, not too long ago, we were looking at the Seversky Donetsk Canal, which is here, and seeing Ukraine really only pushed up against the canal. Well, Ukraine has, progressed pretty far beyond the canal at this point. This area specifically being, 16 kilometers squared that's been cleared, or that is now at least under control of Ukraine. But we'll see advances that take place about here, which ultimately will result on video in Russians retreating. Now, specifically, this is going to be from the 3rd Brigade, and it is mechanized. I'm going to play the sound on this one. It is mixed in with audio, but it has sound from on ground as well, I think. Yeah. So just to note what you were looking at there, I should have given you a discretion on that one. Discretion advised for the remainder of this. It's going to show quite a few deceased on screen. But this down here is a tank, right? Just to kind of slow things down for a moment. And that tank firing towards what I believe to be the Seversky Donetsk Canal here. Donetsk. The canal. It's firing at the canal, guys. Bring it up. Now, in the process of that advance, just like we see elsewhere in Ukraine, one of Ukraine's tanks in this area, and I think I remember exactly where this is here. I want to say this takes place in here-ish. Question mark. But in the process of that advance, maybe not that one specifically, but in the same general area, one of those Ukrainian tanks hits a mine. Looks to be primarily a mobility kill, though. Maybe not even a full one. It's still moving to some extent. All right, let's bring it up because we've got more from that same area. Well, sort of. We're going to be jumping a little bit to the north towards Klishivka, where Ukraine also continues to advance. They're inching ever closer to Klishivka. Just to take everybody back, we might have new folks to the stream here that might not understand Deep State's colors. Green is reclaimed ground of Ukraine's outside of the last 2 weeks. Anything inside of the last 2 weeks that has been reclaimed is blue. Anything that is red is currently Russian held. So if we were to bring the map all the way out, you would see any of the green areas in Ukraine are all formally held, were all formally held by Russia, that Ukraine has now taken back. But we are here in Klishivka. Now, to the immediate west of Klishivka, it's going to be right in here. We've got footage of Russian infantry being hit, well, Russian positions, I should say, being hit by Ukrainian artillery. Conversely, on the other side of the coin, and this discretion is advised on, we have Russian artillery hitting Ukrainian positions west of Klishivka. Don't worry, it's coming. There we go. I don't know why this is part of the video. And here is the artillery. Once again, discretion advised. Deceased on screen. Here soon. .155 hits hard. More than likely what we're seeing here is 152 millimeter. Given that this would be Russian artillery. Let's bring it up. I've got another one of those for you. Same area. It's kind of a continuation of what we just saw. Discretion once again advised. That's an interesting comment there. Drones are making foot soldiers obsolete. Some of them, I would actually agree with you, yes. I would say more scouts than anything. Kind of your forward observer 13 Fox for those that are in the Army. With a drone now, you can perform some of those same mission functions. You know, maybe the 13 Fox becomes the drone operator. Right? What you just saw was smoke. Smoke via phosphorus. Who is who right now? We are watching Russian artillery strikes on Ukrainian positions west of Klishivka. Let's head back to the map to just bring that full circle. So Klishivka here. And the relevance of Klishivka, the reason I focus on this so much is you'll still see people talking about the quote-unquote envelopment or encirclement of Bakhmut, which to a certain extent is happening. Right, there are certain parts of Bakhmut that now have Ukrainian positions past them. It's still important to note that Klishivka, from the Bakhmut city edge, is 5 kilometers away. This is part of that talking point of envelopment that you see in a lot of instances coming from pro-Ukrainian accounts. But that's also taking place in the north as well. Some Ukrainian ground up here. To say that it is being enveloped, I think would be a little bit cart before the horse. Ukraine is continuing to take ground back here. Again, if you just look at how much they've taken back, 24.5 kilometers squared, 15.96 kilometers squared. That's quite a bit of ground. They're not really to the point yet. Outside of artillery being able to cover these GLOCs, these MSRs, ASRs, supply routes, ground lines of communication. If artillery can cover those, that's when things start getting interesting for the Russians in Bakhmut. Now, speaking of the Russians in Bakhmut, let's move into Bakhmut proper. Like proper. Let's say it's about here, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's right here. So literally this spot. Here. Matter of fact, let's go to Google Earth. Because this is about to be an interesting video. Like a really interesting video. If you guys ever see folks lobbing RPGs up into the air, like, what are they shooting at? Well, we're about to find out that it's got to come back down. Let's jump over to Bakhmut. Shift down. There it is right here. So these 4 areas are going to be kind of key terrain to remember. And this area here is going to be an impact area from a firing squad of Russian RPG rocketeers. I don't know. Let's bring that up. It's a wild video. Now, their firing point, I'm not certain of where that is. Not at all, really. But here's the video. Note those 4 key pieces of terrain here. And keep an eye down here at the bottom. We will have sound for this video.
Быстрей!
The audio, just to clarify, the audio that you're hearing is from this video in the lower left. Right? Now you're hearing these explosions, which are going to sound as though they're off in a distance from the audio in this video in the lower left.
Готовься! Целься! Огонь! Заряжай! Пошевеливайтесь, пацаны! Вот опытный гранатометчик у нас есть, сразу видно. Целься! Огонь! Заряжай! Целься! Енисей выше! Огонь! Заряжай! 3 года с гранатометом, да, старый? Да. Красавчик! Целься! Огонь! Заряжай!
У тебя нету, уходи вот туда.
Целься! Огонь! Все, сваливаем! Старый, добивай!
Don't forget Terry.
С добрым утром!
All right. It's kind of like mortars at home, if you will. But, you know, to be honest with you, it's more accurate than I would have expected it to be. You know, at least hitting all inside a frame here. Let's bring it up. Thought that was a really interesting video. Because you do see that quite a bit. I shouldn't say quite a bit. We've seen it enough for it to be in the back of my head movies, to see someone kind of point an RPG, high angle fire, if you will, and just kind of send in one. And when you have like a firing line of them, if you will, all holding generally the same angle at generally the same direction, that's about what you see from an impact area perspective. Just to kind of bring that back again. Let's jump back to the map. So you were looking kind of west by southwest here. Impact area being right there. Russians off this away somewhere. To be honest with you, probably not too far. Probably looking at somewhere in here-ish. but not too far away. All right, let's move to a different area. I'm not going to try to pronounce that one. I mean, well, I'll give it a shot. You know, at this point, it's just, I butcher all of it. Horivka. I don't even think I was close. There you go. But we're not moving far. We're just moving to the northern part of Bakhmut, right? So Bakhmut here, we were just right on that southwestern edge. This is where we're going. Now this will be a Ukrainian mechanized assault that gets stopped by Russia. And by stopped, what ends up happening is it's a 4-Vic movement. The front, being a tank, starts getting peppered with something, rockets of some kind, maybe hits a landmine as well. And the 3rd Vic hits a mine. It kind of jump cuts at one point, and what we see is that 3rd Vic still burning. Here you are. So there's that mine, maybe. I don't know. In comes a rocket there. If you blink, you'll miss it. Right there. The tank's going to start unassing that spot. It's going to run into the 2nd vehicle. They all start backing up. That 3rd vehicle, which is another tank, hits a mine. And it's just chaos. Artillery. There's that jump cut that I talked about. Let's bring it back up. Now, just to the north of that, however, a Ukrainian assault. We're moving right up to Minkivka here. A Ukrainian assault where they've made gains in the last 2 weeks. That, at least on screen, in our imperfect two-dimensional lens into the sole 500 by 500 meter picture of an entire front that's bigger than, by landmass, Normandy. Again, we are always looking at an imperfect lens into what's actually happening on the ground. But at least in this, it appears that Ukraine was a bit more successful. Discretion advised on this one. Deceased. Let's bring it up. We're going to be jumping pretty far on the map here, and it looks like I am right on with thinking, or with my understanding of when we'd be ending the stream. Moving to Torsky. Got more Russian shelling with RPGs. Here's Torsky, kind of along that Crimea axis, if you will. arrows, you know, I don't know, for those that need me to tell you this, arrows being generally indicative of movement. This is an area along the Crimea-Sevastopol line that has had a lot of discussion about some 100,000 troops that have been postured there by Russia, and I don't know, something like 900 tanks. We're going to see more footage of Russians using RPGs as mortars. Coming up now. Keeping that sound off. I guess that's a little bit closer than I remember. That's more direct than the mortar fire earlier. Got one more video to show you guys here in a second. We're watching this one again so that I can get it pulled up. Just bear with me. I didn't add it to the list, unfortunately. All right. Now, one video that I didn't add to the list that I wanted to cover, and I've been waiting to see it in my list, was a Russian strike in Zhytomyr on what is reported to be an ammunition depot. Let's bring that up. Pretty deep into Ukraine here. Let's come up and we'll watch that footage. Some pretty spectacular footage, and I mean that in the most fundamental sense of the word. What's interesting is the secondaries that are going off, all in the air. A lot of reports are attributing that to this being a storage of cluster munitions. If you look closely, you'll see all of those going off. They've already started. And as they're going off, if you look closely, you'll see the smoke plumes from some of those secondaries. Now, that's just what's being reported. I can't tell you what I'm looking at here. That description of those secondaries would make sense to me, just from an ignorance perspective. And now let's come back up. So that is a Ukrainian storage facility of some kind that is, you know, again, being speculated to have housed cluster munitions. Now I got one more video for you guys. It is our ending video for the night. And we're going to talk for a moment about Belarus. We're going to talk about Wagner and kind of their mission as it stands right now in Belarus. Wagner is positioned very far to the west in Belarus, training very specifically the 38th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade, considered to be a part of Belarus's special forces. I'm going to show you guys a photo of that right now. And I've got some footage to go along with it. Don't worry. Stand by. This is Wagner training some of those Belarusian special operators. And their duty location is what makes this most interesting. Now, I mentioned that they're positioned pretty far to the west. Now, in Brest specifically, that borders Poland. But I wanted to show you guys, on my way out the door here, footage of some of that training that they're providing. Very specifically, how to deal with an injury to the neck. Now, I'm going to show this to you on my way out, just like I always do. I appreciate you guys for being here. There was some support coming in. DC Williams for $100. Thank you for that, man. Goodness. London Water, thank you for the 5. I'm starting late watching from the beginning, but I can afford to throw a few, and thank you for that very much. The Left and Heist, thank you for the 5. Jan, thank you for the 656. Sour Vodka, thank you for the 345. Guys, thank you all for being here. You'll get this video on the way out. It's worth it. I appreciate you being here. We'll see you guys either on the next stream, which is immediately going to follow this one. It's going to automatically redirect you over there. Don't go anywhere, because you're going to want to watch this training on how to deal with a neck injury. But right after that, we'll see you over on the other stream. We'll kick back, have a few beers, maybe play with some Nerf darts. We'll see what happens. Good night, and stay informed. Yeah, now just wrap it around your neck. Yep, like that. Mm-hmm. Oh, God. The screens did the best part was coming up. The screens did the weird thing. Just wait for it. It's coming back. It's coming back. Come back up. Let's talk about it for a second. He's teaching him how to use that S-Mark tourniquet, which is ultimately really just a big rubber band, right? And he's telling him that you need to wrap it around your neck to stop the bleeding on a certain side of your neck, whichever side. You use your arm to keep it from going all the way around your neck. The problem is you're going to end up cutting off the blood flow from half of your brain. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. Here's the video. We'll see you guys on the next stream.